Hello and welcome to Gooners in the USA. Kind of an emergency pod here, Mike.
It's a huge emergency. I mean, the big news hit a little while ago. Everybody knows now. Arsenal are subsidizing the tickets to Atletico Madrid. That's all everyone's talking about at this point. No, Andy, did you wake up to some interesting news this morning?
I did, and funnily enough, it didn't come from the text message group where I had 185 unread messages. It came from some American friends I have, and one of the guys just posted the link, and I opened it, pretty much jumped out of bed, and my wife was like, "Who died?" And read it through.
No, it's
quick.
much more exciting than that.
Yeah, and then about 5 minutes later, as you know, I'm not a morning person. She's like, "So you're in a really good mood today."
Well, let's introduce somebody who needs no introduction. He's also in a very good mood today, Mr. Lee Judges. Thank you for being available on short notice.
No problems. Glad to come on. Glad to come on.
Just add the appearance to our tab, please. We're running up a pretty good one. But may I? To pull back the curtain a little bit, we're part of a WhatsApp group that, like you said, Andy, there were 200 and something messages this morning, and that's not that unusual.
No,
I didn't really think much of it, but one of the messages is my favorite one, and I'd like to play it. It's an audio clip from
Mr. Made me laugh so hard
from about 4:20 in the morning my time. May I play it, Lee? I don't want to
play it. Go on, play it.
Yes, we're back.
I hope that came across, because that is literally what I woke up to this morning, and I'm setting that now as my alarm on my iPhone. So every morning on a Saturday or a Sunday when I got to wake up at 7:30 or 8:30 or whatever time for or 5:30 for an Arsenal game, that will be my alarm that goes off.
So Lee, you were live in the UK, obviously. How did you hear about it first? I mean, did it come across like you get a text? How did you find out?
Well, I was listening. I was driving at work, and it come through on Talk Sport. Alan Brazil said there's some breaking news, and he said about it. And when it sort of finally settled down with a couple of minutes, my phone then went absolutely crazy. But the first call it was from my mate who's a Spurs fan, and he was going, "Oh,
was he devastated?"
Yeah, devastated. He was honestly. "Oh no, I can't believe it. What if you heard the news? It's bad news for us." You know what I mean? And that was the moment when I realised that this was a big thing. You know, because a lot of the other clubs, and no disrespect to Arsene Wenger and the way, they all want him to stay because they know that we're not a threat. You know, it's like all the people on TV now, all the managers are going, "Oh, he's such a lovely fellow." The reason they're saying that, Mike, is because they know now that this is going to be a different animal that we're going to have. And as happy as I was when I'd done that, that was the realisation of what had happened. But during the course of the day, I've become guilty about being so happy, you know what I mean, because of what he's done in the past. I really have, you know what I mean? And there's always going to be a part of me that wants to respect Arsene Wenger and everything that's gone through it. But I didn't hear none of the pundits or anybody saying, "Oh, you've got to feel sorry for Arsene, you know, Wenger," or feel sorry. What they were saying is, when we was coming home from Newcastle, a 6-hour drive home from Newcastle, I didn't hear none of the pundits turn around and say, "Oh, you've got to feel sorry for the Arsenal fans. You've got to feel sorry for him. You've got to give them respect." There's nothing like that. All of a sudden now it's, "Oh, everybody's got to respect him because of whatever." And that gets on my goat a little bit, you know. At the end of it, you know, 2 days ago, Mike, people were really calling him because we hadn't got a point away from home this season, you know. And all of a sudden now he's the best thing since sliced bread. The reason we're in this position is because of his failings this season and last season and the season before. And the fact of the matter is, it's no one, you know, you can blame the fans, you can blame this. At the end of the day, it's not our fault that we're shambolic at defending. It's not our fault that we've not won away from home this season, you know. And I can tell you, a game against Newcastle, the support was fantastic. It was really good up there, you know. So I don't buy into all that. I do buy into the you know. And what's the greatest thing that he's done for me is that he's come out now and said that he's that he's going to leave at the end of the season, because get this right. You've got fans in our fan base at this moment in time. I'm not one of them, by the way, that wants us not to win the Europa League because they were worried about him staying on for another season.
Right.
To his credit, he's got rid of that now. So everybody now can get right behind the team and let's win the Europa League and do what I've said in many a times, send Arsene Wenger away on a high note. And I pray not just for Arsenal to win the Europa League, but for Arsene Wenger to get a dignified leaving do, if you like, which he deserves for what he's done in his first 10 years of tender. And also, which people do, and I will stress this as well, during a part of the season, we was getting us a top 4 with a limited budget and being ridiculed for it, Mike. Now, Spurs get that, and everybody thinks what a fantastic job it is. You know what I mean? Our Pochettino's doing a wonderful job. Klopp's doing a wonderful job. These are things that Arsene Wenger was doing 4 or 5 years ago and getting ridiculed for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been the last 3 years that he's failed. I was backing Arsene Wenger until the transfer window shut, and he just spent 15 million on Petr Cech. That was the day that me and Wenger parted ways, if you like.
Does he know that?
Yeah, I've told him many a times. I don't think he listens.
No, you know, he doesn't listen to many people, which can be a strength or a weakness. But, you know, everyone today, it's been interesting. My head's been spinning. It was going to be a busy day for me today, even before this came out. I overslept this morning, so I was probably the last person to find out about Arsene Wenger leaving. And, you know, since then, it's just been just an absolute storm on Twitter and WhatsApp and text. I mean, everybody I know is emailing, and not emailing, but texting. And there's this whole thing about how do you cope to this? Now that it's actually happened, how do you cope with it? Do you show respect and walk back all of your statements if you've been vocal against him, and then get called a hypocrite for that? Do you just maintain your course and say, you know, this is too late and it shouldn't have happened, and I'm not going to show him respect? I think, Lee, your approach is right. I mean, I'm happy. I'm very happy that he's going, and I'm happy the way he's going. I've been saying for 2 years, it's got to be. I want it to be respectful. That I hope that he has the opportunity not just to leave in shame, but to leave with a groundswell of support from the supporters. I worried and still worry that he left it too late for that. I think, you know, this time or earlier last season, while we were still pushing for the FA Cup, this season we've got the Europa League, would have been an ideal time to do it. And I think he's lost a lot of people in his corner. I got pretty close to losing the respect. I've always had respect for what he's done, but you know, it's almost too late, but I don't feel that it's too late. And now we all ought to, unless you really, really just feel otherwise, just get behind him for the few games that we have left. And then it gets into the new coaching search. But I mean, Andy, your feelings when you saw the news. I mean, you talked about how you found out, but how are you coping?
It's bittersweet. For me, you know, Lee had mentioned, you know, kind of when his time with Arsene was done. I've been kind of on that change bus for many a years, and I think it was when Van Persie was sold to United to ultimately go on and help them win the title and get that golden boot. You just kind of recognize that was the moment I felt like he wasn't the right person to push us forward, because that would never have happened if Mourinho or Sir Alex was our manager. But as Lee had said, you know, you can't dismiss everything that he's done for our club. You can't dismiss the times where he had a very limited budget, kept us in Champions League, moved us into that new stadium. I don't think he had the full support of the board. I do place 98% of the blame on his lap, because they're not the ones setting tactics and all that stuff. I think we passed up on some really good players throughout his tenure because of a couple £1 million. And those players went on to be absolutely worldy. But I feel like he deserves the last couple matches that he's managing for us for the supporters to stand up and sing for him. I think he deserves a statue. I think that without him, he deserves a stadium name, a stand, whatever he wants. I think that without him, we're not the club that we are today on this global level, and we don't. I mean, the Invincibles alone is enough for us to all just, it puts a smile on your face, right? So it's bittersweet, but he should have left 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I mean, that was time, but now he's done the right thing. He has left with a year on his contract, which he always said he'd see it through. And, I think that he's left whoever this new manager comes in with a decent squad. And you got to thank him for that, because he could have sold some players. He could have just said to Mesut, hey, don't resign because I'm leaving. But we've got a good team here. And I think once we get a manager who will coach and bring in a coaching staff, I think we instantly become a threat. And if you are another top 4 team, you're probably thinking shit. Because if we do bring in an Ancelotti, all the names that we're linked with outside of Brendan Rodgers, I think bring this team and take them to the next level.
And that's the thing. It's where we go from here. And if you look at the press conference today, it was about 20 minutes, not much of a press conference actually. It was Ivan Gazidis pretty much just respecting Arsene Wenger and not answering any question that could give any clue as to what has really transpired here. Did he leave on his own accord and come to this conclusion, or is he basically being given the respect and the ability, which I suspect, to be able to announce it himself, to resign, to walk away rather than be pushed out? I mean, Lee, do you think we've had some discussion about that internally? I mean, do you think that this was a decision that went down as it's being played out in the press, or do you think this was this is your last chance to walk away without getting fired and sacked over the summer?
Well, I think there's 2 trains. I honestly think that they've had a meeting, obviously, and it's if you don't get to win the Europa League, then you've gone. They was going to sack him. I really do think that. But I think for him, he could have kept quiet. That for him to win the Europa League, the best shot he's got at doing it is doing what he's done now and come out and saying that I'm going at this time, because all of a sudden everybody's going to be backing him. Now, I'll be honest with you. There's 5 games to go in the league season, and 2 Europa League games. I'm looking forward to the Europa League game. This is before that. There's hopefully 3, but definitely 2 at the moment, and the away leg in Madrid. The other 5 games, I'm thinking, oh God, I don't really want to go. Shall I go? Shall I not? All of a sudden, by today's announcement, I'm looking forward to going to West Ham now. I'm looking forward to going to Huddersfield now, which is going to be a game where no one wanted to go to, by the way.
Right.
All of a sudden now it's going to be a historical game, because it's the last Premier League game of Arsene Wenger's tenure. So that's going to be historical. Then you look at the game against Burnley at home. I was looking to go on my own. Now all my mates have all said they're going now, because it's the last game, and hopefully they'll all play homage to Wenger, and I do feel that, we don't want to get too dragged into the thing. I think that at times, again, I'm going to, what Andy was saying there about the Van Persie thing, I never was upset about that, because I do think that the board, he was sort of sold out. He was sold out by the board. He was the one on the chopping block for that. It seemed to me that everybody else got away with that one apart from Wenger. It wasn't just Wenger that sold him to Manchester United. Other people had to agree to that as well. It ain't just Wenger going, I'm going to sell him to Manchester United. There could have been someone at the club saying, no, we're not going to do it. But they all went along with it. But it always seems to be Arsene Wenger gets the bad press out of it. And I think at the end of the day, Gazidis realistically should be resigning and all, if I'll be honest, with Arsene Wenger on this day, because he's been as just as much as in it as Wenger. And, for him to just say, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that, I'm sorry, I can't listen to him as well. I think at the end of the day, he's sold out Wenger. There should have been somebody in that club. If they had Wenger's back, we would have been telling him, no, we can't, I'm just signing a goalkeeper. Someone at that club should have turned around at that day and said, Arsene, we have got to sign some players here.
Well,
we've got to sign a midfield player. We've got to do this. Yeah.
Role that's missing.
But there was no one to do that, Mike. And because of that, Arsene Wenger's been sold down the river, and everybody else at the club has been still getting their big wages and him taking all the flack. You know, and I do feel that it's, and I have to say this, that people getting on and saying to the fans, oh, the fans are out of order, like, you know, saying about the treatment of Wenger. You know, how dare they say that? You know, the treatment of Wenger. You know, I mean, what about the treatment of the fans over the last 10 years, Mike? You know what I mean? Like, you know, we've been sold a dream. We've been sold, whether it's Wenger or whatever, we've been sold a dream of paying high price. You know, you've gone to games, Mike. You know, £90 a ticket, and you're watching players. You know, how many world class players we've got in our team at the moment? Don't start criticising the fans. You know what I mean? The fans have had enough. They've had enough. They're not just a Wenger. They've had enough with the whole stream that's been sold to them. You know what I mean? I love going to the Arsenal, you know, but I can tell you this now. You know, the only reason I'm looking forward to going on Thursday night, because all of my mates are going, Mike. I've been going on my own 2 or 3 games a season. I went to Watford on my own because none of them wanted to go. You know what I mean? Like, you know.
You didn't ask me.
No, well, you know, well, I knew you was going up there, but you know what I'm saying? From my little lot going up on the train, I went up there on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that I was going to meet Kevin later on and you guys, but going up there.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant the away game.
No one went.
Where you would have flown me over to join you.
I've flown you over, like, you know, but to see what I'm saying, you know, it's not been the same. Fans, you know, so for people to turn around and say, oh, Arsenal shouldn't be doing this and shouldn't be doing that, it's very disrespectful for the fans. We've gone through a lot. You know, they've took away our ground and put us into this bowl, right? Yeah. And at the end of it, we're in the Europa League. We've got no world-class players. Maybe, I don't think we have got a world-class player. We've got some very, very good players, but not what you could say in the mould of Henry, Bergkamp, Vieira, Ashley Cole. The list goes on of players. If I've missed out, so Robert Perez. When we left Highbury, where you could reel off 8, 9 world-class players. Gilberto, I'm just going to go through them all now, like, you know. But now there ain't none. You know what I mean? If you turn around and said Mesut Ozil, people will shoot you down, Mike. You know, if he's a world-class player, like, you know, and that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think our team is strong enough if we have the proper coaching and we have someone who's actively coaching them, which is why it's almost hard to say that, you know, we don't have the world-class players, because we've brought in aggressively players who are supposed to be ready to take that next step, and they've regressed here. So I think that's kind of, you know, not to belabor, and we don't want to talk about why Arsene Wenger, I mean, well, we can, but talk about why Arsene Wenger has slipped over the last many years. And you know, he's now leaving, and I think that there's every possibility that we could end up in a Moyes situation and have some tough years ahead, which I'm ready for if that's what happens. But I also think there's reason to be optimistic, because I do feel that the quality of players on our squad, the potential to rise up the table again next season and kind of get snapped back into it like Liverpool eventually did and is there. And you know, I'm ready to see what it's going to look like.
I've just got to say, I've really got to say something about this. Why is everybody saying there's going to be a David Moyes situation? Why?
Well, it's the most recent situation this. But
you know, they throw hundreds of millions of pounds at things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if I quickly go on to the David Moyes thing, right? When David Moyes was their manager, they didn't throw hundreds of millions of pounds at it. You know what I mean? They scrimped and saved. They sold him down the river, if I'll be honest. But when the next manager comes in, and the Mourinho, they've chucked a load of money at it. You know what I mean? And that's what we've got to do. You know, we've got to throw in. I believe at Arsenal, if I was going to be the next manager of Arsenal, I'm going to be saying I need 200 million to put us in there, because you've got to get a goalkeeper, a couple of central defenders, a fullback, and a midfield player. We've got to get 5 players. They're not going to be cheap, Mike.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. We've looked at the finances. I mean, I've sat in AST meetings where they've shown us the finances, broken them down based on revenue, sponsorships, player wages. The player wages we're not going to be able to do much about in the next few years. And we know one thing that's different from us and Manchester United and Chelsea and Manchester City, which is we're self-sustaining. Kroenke is not going to throw money from his reserves and from his pocket into the team to make it stronger, to then make it more marketable. It's gonna be a self-sustaining model, and right now there isn't the money to throw at like they did with.
What about the TV money coming in, Mike?
TV money. We're gonna maybe a new shirt sponsor.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like there's money that forget about what goes through the gate now, because the model changed. Unfortunately, when we moved into the Emirates, the model changed because we was fighting against Man United and competing with there. When we went into the Emirates and started going down that route, Chelsea come along with Abramovich. You can't compete with that, and I get it. You can't compete with Manchester City, yeah. But what I'm saying, though, Mike, is that Liverpool, they can afford to pay £75 million for a central defender. Why can't we? You know what I mean?
Because we don't have a player that we can sell for $130 million right before that.
Well, we've done that all the time.
Not for 130.
No, but if you go through all the players that we have spent, got rid of, we've got rid of Adebayor for 30 million. Van Persie, we got rid of Fabregas, we got rid of Nasri. There's four that I've just mentioned, and then brought in young players. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not questioning the
no, I know what you're saying, but like, I'm just saying. So at the end of the day, you know, why if there's no money at the club, why leave in the first place? Because, you know, I remember we were skint when we left Highbury. How comes we're skint now? You know, something's not right. So if that's the case, whoever's done that, get them out.
Yeah, you know I don't know that there's no money, but the problem is, well, first of all, it looks more likely after. Thank goodness Burnley lost. I mean, this is what it's come to. But it looks more likely that we'll at least get Europa League money for next year. Hopefully, we'll get Champions League money for next year. The problem is if those things don't happen, you know, the self-sustaining model is what. It's not that we don't have any money. It's that players have gotten so expensive that we don't have the silly kind of money that we need to spend to bring in 5.
Yeah, but Mike, you got to also think about who we have now running these transfers. You've got the king of negotiations where it comes to, we're going to give you very little up front. And
we have Vagina Crime working for us now.
Exactly. We're going to pay over 5 years to pay for this person. So the finances, I mean, let's not get too drawn into it because we don't know the end-all be-all, right? I think the biggest issue is who's going to take over this team.
Well, and I think, and the reason that I think we kind of slipped into this part of the conversation is because I think who's going to take this team over has a lot to do with the philosophy that they're coming in with. And I'm just not that confident. Lee, I hope that you're right about this, but I'm not sure that Arsenal, don't let me get those two things confused, that Arsenal is going to bring in somebody who says, here are my demands. We need to spend 200 million pounds. They may very well be looking to say something. We need a good manager. We need somebody with some success in history. We're not looking, as Ivan Gazeta said today, we're not looking to bring in another unknown like we did 22 years ago, but it also needs to be somebody who can work within our self-sustaining model. And that may limit it.
I think it's a matter of they bring in someone, and during that interview process, they're going to say to them, we have the team that are going to bring in the players. You can tell us who you want. We'll do our best to get them, but we'll, like, contract negotiations, everything is going to be done by this team. All you need to do is focus on the management. We'll get you the players. If you tell us you need a defensive mid and there's number 1 at the top of your list, we'll go for him. But if it's not possible, we're going to go for number 2, number 3. I truly think they didn't build this team out the last 8 months for it not to be stable. And I think that a manager could walk in like Pep or Jose and say to their board, I want 200 million guaranteed. I think our board turns to this person and says, you're not getting that.
That's exactly,
but we're going to support
that's
you.
exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, that's the world we live in, and I think there are 5 or 6 great managers who would be okay with that.
And I do think that, unlike where we might have been 6 months ago when we were obviously losing Alexis, where we were looking to be losing Mesut Ozil, where a lot of uncertainty was there, where we didn't know whether our manager was going to stick around for another year, another 3 years, or leave. I do think right now that Arsenal has rediscovered its ability to be a very attractive destination for somebody to come to. If we get an enthusiastic manager that players are excited to play for, I would put Allegri in that category. I'd put Nagelsmann in that category. There are probably a few others. Then, you know, to come here with the opportunity to play with Mkhitaryan, to play with Aubameyang, to play with Ozil, to plug up our defense. Don't forget about Iwobi and Mainsley. But I mean, if you have that opportunity, I think you're coming here and you're not using Arsenal as the negotiating dummy to then get your deal at Chelsea, like we've been used over the last 7-8 years, where people are now saying, okay, I'd like to come to Arsenal. And that's what I'm hoping for. Lee, who would be your two choices if you could have a choice of two people to take over the team next year?
Well,
and in the same breath, do you believe the rumors from our WhatsApp chat of a deal already being done for somebody?
No, I don't. I don't think there has been a deal done, but I believe there's been negotiations. I cannot see that there's not been, and I'll tell you why. That I think there's been negotiations. Do you think that someone like Aubameyang, or Mkhitaryan, or Aaron Ramsey, who's negotiating a contract, are prepared to sign and put pen to paper, not knowing who the next manager is?
Well, but Gazeta says they have no idea, so you've got to believe them.
But yeah, I don't believe a word he says. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know,
I don't believe anything he's saying at the beginning of the day.
Gazeta didn't wake up yesterday not knowing this news was coming.
No, so there's something's been done. I'll tell you who I would. The only, I look here and I feel like the one manager that's going to get me buzzing, and I really do feel that we could have saying, is someone like Allegri. I'll tell you why, because he could stiffen up our defence, which is what we so badly need. You know what I mean? Our attacking lineup is fantastic. You know what I mean? I watched Newcastle last week, lads, and I watched their manager in Rafael Benitez organise their defence and shut down Arsenal's attacking force easily, because he worked out how to do it. He nullified it, and then they need to celebrate. Can you imagine if we done that with the player power and firepower that we've got up front? And that's what I want to see. I want to see us defensively sound, and so then when we hit teams on the break with what we've got and play our football, because we played some very, very good football at Newcastle last week. I feel that that's something that we need there. Let's talk about the man that everybody's talking about. I've been listening to what he's been saying on Sky Sports and all that. Like, you know, Luis Enrique looks a very, very good manager. He does, you know what I mean? He's done well with Barcelona. He took over Barcelona, you know, with all the hysteria of Pep and everything like that, and won them the treble. And people forget about that, you know what I mean? I know that people say about Spain and everything there, but at the end of the day, he's done it. And I think he would be he's a young, energetic manager. I've got no problems with that. And then the third one that's being mentioned at the moment is Patrick Vieira. I think that, again, I wouldn't have a problem with that because of, you know, what he was as a captain of our football club. I know that, you know, sometimes that don't work, but he seems to be doing it. You guys would know more than me from over in America, but I'm not so
sure we would. I pay so little attention to
but what he comes across really well on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can say this now. I've done an interview 6 months ago, and they said to me, what out of all the managers, what one would you say would be off the cuff a little bit? And I said Brendan Rodgers. And I'll tell you why about Brendan Rodgers, that I think that he shouldn't be underestimated. And, you know, don't laugh at me when I say this, but he has to go to Falkirk on a Tuesday night knowing that he's going to win the game, right? But he still has to motivate those players to win that game.
True.
And he does it. Now, I'm saying, like, you know, Arsenal go to Swansea, you know what I mean? And we're expected to win. And I watch the game when they're not motivated to win the game on a cold night. And that, but he does it week in, week out, beating the inferior teams. Now, if you get a manager that can do that, right, week in, week out, and then tactically have the nous to go up against the top boys, you ain't going to be far off being a very, very good team. So I wouldn't underestimate Brendan Rodgers for that reason.
I don't know. There was this when NBC first got the soccer contract, what they called the soccer contract here in the U.S. To do Premier League football. They ran a show about Brendan Rodgers in Liverpool. I think it was called Being Liverpool. And it was just cringeworthy watching Brendan Rodgers and his management style and the behind the scenes interview. I mean, the guy was so cheesy and just like, I mean, he had an envelope in front of the whole team.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That just completely turned me off to him. It just made me seem like, you know, as many of the players who actually respect his tactical prowess, if he has that, would just be kind of rolling their eyes like, what the hell is this fucker doing? I mean, this is not buying into him.
Mike, I went up there when Liverpool played. They absolutely ripped us apart. You know what I mean? They had Suarez, he had Sturridge, he had Raheem Sterling playing like out of his skin at that stage. You know what I mean? Like, and if it, you know, Steven Gerrard, you know, I think is one of the best players ever to grace the Premiership. Talks about him very, very highly. Very, very highly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know anything.
But I get where you're coming from.
I think I'm not saying
he's going to be my first choice. The thing is, though, Mike, right? This is where, you know, the divide of Arsenal fans is going to come, because I can tell you that now. We can have all three. You're going to say, oh, somebody else is going to say so. One of us is going to be upset when our manager isn't the one that we picked. Do you know what I mean? That's going to happen now.
And then it all starts over again.
It all starts over again. You know what I mean? Oh, I told you we should have got Allegri. I told you we should have got so and so. So, you know, I feel it's a very difficult decision. That's why I think maybe Patrick Vieira, you know, may get it, because I think, even if you want Allegri or you want Enrique or you want so-and-so and they got Vieira, I think you at the end of the day go, all right.
We would all want to see Vieira succeed.
We'd all want to see.
Frankly, we should all want to see whoever it is succeed. But I mean, no one's going to say, "Oh, I'm going to start cunting off Vieira from the very beginning," because you know what I mean, want to be the one doing that.
No, certainly not, because you know you're looking at a player that was idolised by loads and loads of people. So you know, I don't think it's going to be a very, very straightforward decision that these guys have got to make now. I think, you know, if you said Allegri, I think we're going to have pluses and minuses for all of the guys. There's going to be pluses and minuses. Yeah, and it just depends. You just got to hope and pray that the board know what they're doing and appoint the right one. Now, listen, for us guys, you know what I mean? Like, we're old enough to remember Bruce Rioch and George Graham and you know, like, I remember Terry Neal, you know what I mean, and Don Al, you know what I mean. But there's a lot of people out there, Mike, that have only experienced Arsene Wenger. So that's, you know, you talk to a few. I've talked to lads in their 20s today. Oh, you know, we're going to get a new manager. What's that like? You know what I mean? So it's you know, there's so many things that today has brought. It's a momentous day for Arsenal Football Club today, and the next decision, this decision that Arsene Wenger's made is fantastic for the football club. The next one that's made is going to be humongous. It's going to be the biggest decision ever from Arsenal Football Club.
Andy, who would you like to see as the manager?
I think the best choice for us is Allegri. Proven manager, has a great track record of going deep in Champions League. I know the Italian league isn't that tough, but again, you're going away to clubs where you know you're going to win, and you have to get your team motivated for that, and that's not easy to do. I think that he would be probably the best choice. I really like Simeone. I think what he has done at Atletico has just been superb. I mean,
could you imagine we announced Simeone at like 7:42 in the evening
before kickoff, right? I think
promise him to get the job, and then when we beat him, was going, "No, we ain't having you."
You know, he obviously would be great because I think he can do a lot with a little, as we've seen him, you know, compete with the Real Madrids and Barcelonas.
That's funny. Most people say that about your wife.
Yeah, I say it about my wife. The Patrick Vieira thing for me would be wonderful, but I would like to add a caveat. I would love to see, if that were going to be the move, it be the move in 2 or 3 years and bring in an Ancelotti as our manager for now, with a Vieira as an assistant. And you're almost saying to the Vieira, this is your club, but not right now. 2 to 3 seasons, we're going to hand it over to you. So give him someone that can mentor him at this level, because I don't think it's the right time. And then, eventually maybe Vieira brings in the likes of an Henry as his assistant, or something just to give the team or the fans a boost. But I think Allegri makes the most sense at this point, and I don't think we're out of the realm of possibility of getting him. The third person, Mike,
listen to some people, it's already done.
Yeah, according to some people, it's already done. The other name that I keep hearing a lot, which makes a lot of sense, is the Monaco coach. Is it Jardem?
Yeah.
And the reason I like him is because, again, has to play in a league where there's a front runner and they do well. He's found a lot of talent. They don't spend a lot of money. He plays good football. He's got the Champions League experience. And so we've got a couple management options on the table, and I think these are all gettable individuals, and that connection that we have with Monaco is great. But again, if you bring in a Jardem, if you bring in a Simeone, why not bring in Vieira as the assistant? If he would take it, why not do that? So
would he take it though? Because he's a head coach right now of basically a feeder team. You love the feeder league. Of a lower level. He's basically a manager in training to succeed Pep Guardiola, as far as I can tell. And so why would he come back to Arsenal, who hasn't offered him a position? He's kind of moved on. Why would he come back in an assistant capacity?
Because at the end of the day, Vieira's not a city boy. He's a guy who played there for 2 seasons max.
He's Arsenal.
Yeah, he's Arsenal through and through. And at the end of the day, Mike, that board, whenever they get sick of Pep, they're not going to go for a Vieira. They're going to go for the next biggest name on the market, and that will most likely be a Simeone. Would most likely be a Klopp type character, right? Someone who's larger than life. That's a name that comes to the club. I don't think Vieira does that. I don't think that excitement is there. But in our world, it's a completely different story.
Well, that's all true.
Yeah. So who would you go? Like, who's your top 1-2 candidates for this?
I mean, I get nervous about the concept of this transitionary thing. I know. There have been clubs, Bayern Munich's done it, where they've kind of had, guys that come in and stay for a couple of years and then they move on. But I think if we go into an Ancelotti situation with the expectation that we're going to change coaches again in 2 or 3 years, I think we're in trouble.
I think it's only if you have an Ancelotti who's up there in age, who can manage the team, manage the bus, so to speak, and mentor. That would be the only reason.
It wouldn't kill me in hindsight if that ends up happening, but I'd be nervous, much more nervous going in than I would be if my first choice is, not to be boring, it would be Allegri. I think he's got this quality to him that excites players. And again, if you have quality players who get excited, you can see there's jokes formulating in my head right now, but then if he can do what he's done, and I know they're not even leading the Serie A this season, but he knows how to win, and he knows how to play defensively when it matters. And I cannot imagine a situation more diametrically opposed to how we train our defense right now. Where they really get no instruction, even though our assistant coach is a former defensive legend. And I know that he would address that issue. Not saying the attackers don't need any coaching, but if the focus was on the defense from the top down and we let the attackers play attacking football, I think we could be a much better team next season. So, I would go with Allegri. And then, beyond that, I couldn't claim to really know enough about any of the coaches to involve how they play tactically. There are people, Drew and Tom and others that are much more tactically in tune as to why certain coaches would be better for us or worse than us. I'm more reactionary, and I like the concept of a Nagelsmann or of a Jardim. I'm hearing a lot about Sean Dyche lately, which
he'd be a great manager. It was just someone to come in to manage the team, just tactical, and that's it. But he doesn't have the high caliber we need. We need that manager who knows 10 matches left in the season. You're in the hunt for the title, hopefully, or you're in the hunt for top 4. You need that manager who can get you over the line. I wanted to say the one thing I love about Allegri is look at the players he's brought to Juventus that were castaways at a lot of other teams. And he brings them in, and those guys play and they feature and they do really, really well for him.
And most of those guys we made bids on. It was just 15 million too short for too little.
But sorry, Lee, 1 second.
No,
if you look at the players he's brought in, because I'm looking at the transfer market website, the fees for some of these players are not absurd. And yeah, there are like Higuain for 90 million, it's ridiculous. But if you look at 5 or 6 players,
they had just sold Pogba for 90.
Exactly right. So the money was there, but he brings in players that are very good for very little, or they're castaways, as I said, and he knows how to work him in the squad. So if he's coming in, he would be the perfect manager that if the board says to him, hey, we can only give you 60 million, he might look at this team now and go, that's fine. I don't need more than that, but who knows? Lee, sorry I interrupted.
No, I totally agree with you there. I think the one good thing about we could get Allegri, and I'm talking about this today, is that he has got to at some stage rebuild that Juventus side because it's getting old now and all that like that. So would you want to rebuild that side, or would you want to just come in and rebuild a little bit of Arsenal? And I think that we could be one of the defining reasons that we could get him.
And he's apparently, and I don't know if these are bullshit rumors or not. I see things and I forget what the source is, but apparently he said something.
Do a socket.
Well, he can plug himself back into the socket, but I see that he's taking English lessons and that he said that he's pretty much done in the Italian league. I don't know if those are ITKs or if those are news sources or what, but there's a little bit of smoke behind the fire all of a sudden with Allegri, whereas last season when everyone was talking about it, there was absolutely no reason for him to be looking for another job.
It would make sense, you know what I mean? Like if it was him, Arsenal would do some very, very good business here. Look, Eddie's made a great point just back there, saying they sold Pogba, right, and they brought in other players. All right, they did spend a lot on Higuain. But where did they get to the next season? The Champions League final. You know what I mean? You've got to have something about you to get there. They nearly produced a miracle. He got criticised for losing 3-0 at home to Real Madrid. He then went over to Real Madrid and got 3-3. He was so unlucky. You know what I mean? You don't just do that by luck. He knows what he's doing, the bloke. And I think there'd be a great thing. I think one other thing that's been sort of overlooked a little bit here is what's going to happen to Arsenal's backroom staff. What's going to happen to the Steve Bolds of this world now? And because their reputations have not been great because of all of this. You know what I mean? And as you say, goodbye and all that. But will they?
He's going to have to start over and find I hate to say it, but he hasn't done himself any favors by allowing himself to be cuckolded like he has been over the last few years. So, I think he's going to need a fresh start someplace else.
Yeah. So, the cushy little jobs that they've had now, so there could be some inner problems now in the coaching staff. Well, if I'm going, I'm either going to be motivated and all that, which worries me a little bit, if I'll be honest. Unless the board have got to make so many real big decisions. You know what I mean, through this now. And if you are going to be you could. I'm just putting this out there, being devil's advocate here. It could be well, we're going to bring someone in and keep the same coaching staff. These are all things that
Why
could
would
happen.
they do that? Why? Well, they've made the toughest decision they could possibly make already, and I'm assuming that they made the decision. I don't believe for a second that Arsene Wenger said, "You know what? This is my time. I'm going to go." I think that decision was made for him, and he
I agree.
He agreed against his will, but saw the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think they've made the toughest decision to now like constrain whoever they are going to bring in from being able to, because he said in today's news conference, you don't replace him. They said
so you're going to change your yeah.
They said you don't replace him, you just find a new way forward, a different way forward. He said that they would rather do it sooner than later because he recognized the compressed summer and the transfer window that we're going to have. He said some of the right things as far as, but once you've made this decision, instead of trying to fix everything around Arsene and expect changes, they've now chopped off the head from the top. I hate to use that, but they've done the tough thing. And I think it's a much easier thing, a much more logical thing for them to do. I mean, they're not going to have more loyalty to Steve Bold and I mean, Vic Akers, I'm a little worried about, but I think Stu McFarlane can probably stay on. But the rest of the supporting team, you want the new person to bring in their own people.
We say own stuff, yeah. That's how it works.
And not in a way that. And this is another thing that we said today, which is, there we see.
There we are.
I'm home now.
We were enjoying not seeing your face. No,
bit harsh, bit harsh.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, coming from me especially. They said, he said in the news conference today again, the day of having someone with that much power and that much control and autonomy is over. He recognized the fact that Arsene Wenger, was unique in today's game as to how much power he had. He didn't necessarily intimate that he realized it was a problem, because I think that was a huge problem. But he certainly made it seem like the next person was not going to be given, that they were going to be working with Raul, with Sven, and around them as a cohesive team, which I think is huge. I think that's important. So yeah, I think, let's say it's Allegri or Enrique, they may bring in their own team, but under the constraints and the understanding that they're going to be working as part of a larger team of people, including scouting and director of football. And it'd be interesting to see how quickly after that Huddersfield game, Raul gets the official title director of football that he hasn't had.
Well, if you look at Juventus and Allegri, so they are 4 points at the top of the table going in this weekend playing Napoli, who's in second. Okay, so you would think that if he is the guy, I would assume, as Lee had said, everything's been taken care of. Maybe there's a short list, but if he's the guy and we are really going after him, this would not be the time for them to announce it, because they've got a potential league-winning match. Now, they'll have 3 matches after that, but 2 of them for Juventus are probably cakewalk. So I bet in the next 14 days we know who our next manager is.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think it will be? I personally think they'll wait till after the semi-finals for our Europa League. I think that it may be before the final that they would announce it. But
well, he said they wanted that. He recognized they needed to do it sooner rather than later. I didn't take from that they were going to wait until May 9th. Because
you think about it, Enrique's available now. So they could announce that now.
Ancelotti's
now. You know what I mean? So the only thing that would be stopping them doing that is probably for Arsene Wenger's sanity. But so if they do hold on, we're probably looking at Allegri, the manager from
Jardem is they're 17 points behind PSG, so he's relatively available at this point as well.
Yeah, so it could be then that Brendan Rodgers is the one they're waiting for. So from that point of view, I'm just saying, or
we'll have to put Fiddy on that one if he gets hired about how long he lasts.
The reason why I don't think that Rodgers is the candidate was because Celtic came out today and said if Arsenal want to have conversation with him, they can.
So there's been no talk.
There's been no communication, and so I feel like we're not the club that doesn't drive like we said, conversation's been happening. Whether or not a contract has been offered, they've known about this since Christmas, I bet. I bet the board have been fully aware of this, or they've said to Arsene, hey, you need to turn it around. If he is being let go, you need to turn it around. So my guess is that we're going to get one of the big boys. And I think the longer it gets delayed, it's either going to be Allegri or Simeone. And I say that because, like Lee said, we've got the semifinal against Atletico, and they're not going to announce that. And if Juventus are going to lose this weekend, that's going to delay it even more because they have that very slim lead. If they lose this weekend to Napoli, they're 1 point ahead of them in the league. The worst possible thing that can happen to them is then their manager turns around and goes, "I'm fucking off for 4 weeks."
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So Yeah.
Well, I don't think Simeone's even in the frame at this point. I'd love to see him. I think that would be an interesting appointment, but for some reason I don't think that there's any smoke there.
It's exciting though, isn't it? Don't you think it's exciting that we don't know we get a lot? I feel like I've been re-energized. I really do. I'm not, and I don't mean that nasty about Arsene Wenger, but all of a sudden, you know,
I do too.
I feel that we're going to go into a new manager. There's going to be some new players. Got to be some new players coming in.
Well, the apathy has just been, I mean, just disappeared as of this morning. There's no apathy. Whether you're excited, whether you're upset, whether you choose to strike out at the opposing camp, if you're hunkered down in one of the two Arsene Wenger camps and strike out at them and get into stupid back and forths, there's no more apathy involved. I slept through most of the game against Newcastle. One of the reasons we didn't do a podcast after Newcastle, besides Andy's trip to Vegas, was because I was so hungover that morning and I had gotten very little sleep, and I just literally laid in bed with like one eye open and woke up when Newcastle scored the second goal. I didn't watch most of it. I couldn't have cared less, other than the fact that I knew I had a bunch of people who were at the game.
It's so right, you know what I mean? Listen, we went up to Newcastle, and do you know what? I was angry.
You were at the game and you slept through the whole thing.
No, but I was angry about the only thing that I was angry about in that game was that one player come up at the end of the game. I wasn't worried about the defending and all that, because you know what? It's an acceptance. You know, there's a song going around on away games. You know, you must be crap because we're winning away. You know what I mean? That's not Arsenal, lads. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's not on. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's our own fans singing that, like, you know what I mean? Like, now, and when
I've heard we're fucking shit. We're fucking shit from my way.
We're walking out of the ground. Well, what do you expect? No one is bothered no more. No one's been bothered for 2 or 3 months now. You know what I mean? And
you look pretty bothered on a particular interview.
Yeah, well, no, but
Mustafi.
But that's because of what wound me up was, you know, you go all the way up there and only one player. I watched Stoke yesterday, the Thursday night, and they just got conceded a goal in the last minute. So they're down the bottom of the league, and every player, including the manager, have gone over and thanked the fans. I want a bit of that. Yeah, I want to be appreciated. You know what I mean? I don't want a shirt. I don't want nothing like that. But what I want is I want my Arsenal back, and I feel a bit of that has come back to me today. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to feel guilty about that. I'm really not. You know what I mean? And there's an acceptance at the moment that we're going to get beat away from home. There's an acceptance. You know, honestly, lads, you know, you're over there in the States. The next 5 league games, was you bothered about getting up in the morning and watching them?
No, I was about to say, my brother-in-law's here from England.
He is West Ham.
Diehard West Ham match is on at 5:30 on Sunday, and he said, "Are we getting up?" And I said, "Honestly, I'd rather we sleep in and we watch it delayed." That's different.
Just picture you and your brother-in-law lying in bed together watching.
It ain't the same, though, guys. It's not the
little
same.
Trays of eggs and full English breakfast in front of you.
It's not the same though watching it delayed, is it?
No,
I hate watching it delayed
because you can't look at your phone, you can't go online. It's not the same. But now I'm up for it. I'll get up. I want to see the reception. I want to see how different this team's going to play.
Exactly.
I'm excited to see what's next for this club. I'm excited to see our preseason tour, like everything now. I'm all in again. And this is the first season in 35 years where I thought to myself, I could give 2 shits.
Yeah.
You know? And now that's completely different. It's changed. And I want to see
we are up to no less than 3 or 4 shits now that we give.
But listen, it's so poignant because I was coming home from Newcastle, right? And I turned around and said, I don't think I can do this no more. I don't think I can do this no more. I think this is it. You know what I mean?
Were you like running in front of the car with a rope tied to you, pulling the car forward?
Seriously, I'll tell you this now. This is just, I'm telling you this as true as it is. I was like my mate Tony's little girl's 2 on Saturday the 28th, and I was thinking to myself, do you know what? Do I go Manchester? I'm really thinking about not going Manchester. The only reason I'm going to go Manchester is because like I'm going up there, meeting Kevin, and we're going to the game. Otherwise, I would knock that game on the head. But now, whether I weren't going with Kevin or not, I'm up for it.
So you will actually now go to games where former Arsenal players aren't buying you prawn sandwiches. Is that what you're here to announce?
I'm doing. That's why I'm announcing that now.
I mean, you'll even go where just regular people are buying.
But do you know what I mean? Like, but what I'm saying is, it wasn't there for me. But as Andy said, now you guys are going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Fair play to you, like, you know what I mean. But you were even thinking about not getting up in the morning. You didn't even get up for the new. That is what has happened to our football club at the moment. But now you're going to get. I guarantee the first game of the season, if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, you guys are getting up, aren't you? Because you want to see the new manager and what it's all about. And that's what we're going to get now. We're going to get energy. You've got the energy back in our bodies for Arsenal. And,
well, I do live on the East Coast. So it's a little easier for me than Andy. But
what time is it for you then?
It's
7:30.
Generally anywhere from 7:30 to I mean, it could be 12:30 if it's a late Saturday game, but so it's not that hard for me. And I watch every game. I get excited about every game. I've said this in recent weeks. This weekend
about the Newcastle game, you just said you didn't.
This had more to do with me being hungover than it did about apathy. But I in any case, I'm excited to see what happens going forward. We do have some user questions that we want to get through real quick. If we can, because I sent that to APB for it. So one from James, what do you think the perfect title for the tell-all book that we all hope Wenger will write, but probably won't because he's too professional and civilized? What would be the title? His pick is "Go Fuck Yourself, Jose." Andy, did you tune out?
No. That's a good question.
It is a good question. Very good question.
The title, Little Bit Champion, maybe? Or
what could have been the Arsene Wenger story?
What could have been if I had just had another 22 years? All right. Well, that's a book that we'll hopefully see coming out soon.
I think The Truth. The Truth by Arsene Wenger.
Be interesting. It could have been a contender.
Yeah. What could have been? If only I'd have paid that extra £1 for Suarez, you know what I mean?
Or one more year and we would have done
it. Could have been Champions League.
All right. This is a good question from Alfredo from New Orleans. Number one, Lee, how do you feel the players will respond to the announcement?
Well, I feel they've got a responsibility now. I really do. I think they've let the manager down, and I feel that they've got to really show a bit now. I really do. I think that I expect they're in a little bit of a difficult situation, because if they turn up their performances 10%, some people are going to turn around and say, "Why didn't they do that before?" So I think it's very precarious for them. But I think that there'd be a determination from them to send him out on a high, just like there will be for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, and you've seen a little bit of that on Twitter today. I mean, the players are starting to line up. I saw Jack sent out a tweet. Andy, what do you think the players' reaction is going to be?
I think they're going to go gung-ho. I think they're going to try a little bit harder. I think the Europa League is the best send-off, so they're going to give everything they've got.
It's crazy that that's even being said, but I agree with you. I mean, they will try a little bit harder. It should never be something that you say in the Premier League, because they should be trying their best. But you get the feeling that they haven't been.
Yeah. But you also have to think that each of the players are looking at this now as my new manager is watching me, because the 5 names we've been banning about, they're in the conversation. They're looking at every match. And now you've got players like Chambers, Holding, Iwobi, who think to themselves, I'm on the chopping block. So they want to play their best. And Mike, I know I've just texted you, but I do have to jump off.
Yep. Yeah, Lee, you and I are gonna finish this off with a few
questions.
Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you both soon.
Yeah,
cheers, Andy.
See you, boys. Bye.
And the second part of the question, Lee, is will Arsene go to Gunnergraw next year? And I'll add to that, will you go to Gunnergraw next year? You and Kevin got to get over there.
I'd love to go to Gunnergraw. It's like, it does seem like a fantastic fit. Funny enough, speaking to Troops about it, he absolutely loved it over there. So
yeah, he almost didn't make it back home.
Yeah. So I'd like, definitely would like to do
and
that.
And he came back to go to the Swansea game of all things too.
Hopefully, we're still in the FA Cup this time. You know what I mean? That's the only reason they went out.
Well, yeah, it'll be mid-February, so I don't even think it'll be an FA Cup weekend. It might just be a normal. We'll have to see when the schedule comes out. But all right, there's another question from Schwinn. Do you believe in our board to make the right decision when it comes to a successor? Write to him implies a Premier League title in the next 3 years and Champions League final or title in 5. I guess there's a two-part question there. Do you think that the board will make the right decision? We've talked about that.
Well, we'll talk about that kind of that, but I think even if they make the right decision, do I think Arsenal will win the league? I don't think Arsenal will win the league ever again. If I personally, no, I honestly don't think.
And that's more down to the financial power of the
Manchester
opposition.
City. I honestly believe that over the next 5 years, Manchester City will dominate English football, guaranteed. Because it's only through a bit of mismanagement and whatever that they've not done it in the past. You have a look at what they're doing. They're already looking at bringing in Apathy. Come out again. He's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. He is.
Apathy and
yeah, like, you know what I mean. But they're already looking to offload. I think that they will do as well. They're Aguero and bring in somebody else. And I just think it will revolve, and they're going to be very, very hard to overhaul. As will Chelsea.
It makes the Leicester City thing even more unbelievable.
Oh, it makes it amazing. And frustrating for us guys, because that's the season that we spent 15 million. We could have won the league. You know what I mean? Like, and I believe that. But you've got Manchester United that are throwing a lot of money about, Mike. You know what I mean? And supposedly one of the best managers in the world, and they're not getting near them. And I have to say, I watched Manchester City against Spurs the other day. Spurs are a very, very good team, Mike. They are. They destroyed them. Like, and
they did it to him twice this season.
Yeah, so they've done it to us as well. I do feel that whoever's going to come in, it'd be a miracle if we do overtake them. Champions League, if you want my honest opinion, we've got a better chance of winning that if we're in it, because it does get to the knockout stages, and as you've seen in the knockout rounds, anything can happen. I do believe that Liverpool deserve to beat Manchester City, but if the referee made the right call, Manchester City would have gone in that game 2-0 at half time. Who knows? So sometimes you need a little bit of luck. I feel we've got a better chance over the next 5 years of winning the Champions League than the league. Yeah. That's my personal opinion.
And along with that, we have a question from Becca, Gunner Becca, who says, after this managerial shift, what table results, so in the Premier League, what would you be expecting or satisfied with next season? I mean, is it second that you'd be expecting at this point? Third?
Yeah, third.
And we're, like, at the end of the season, let's say we're in the Europa League next year, and so we have no chance of winning the Champions League, but we also have the domestic league that you are pretty confident no one other than City has a chance to win. Do you demand and expect second place and consider it a failure otherwise? Or, I mean, what are the new expectations?
Well, I wouldn't say a failure if you can't say what I would expect from Arsenal was a challenge. Like, you know what I mean? Like, now, and I'm sort of saying that, it's very hard to say. Have Manchester United, who are going to come second this season, challenged for the title? No, they've not. You know what I mean? Have Tottenham challenged for the title this season? And they've had a great season? No. So it's very hard to sort of say what you expect and what you don't. You almost got to look at those two teams and say that even though the table doesn't bear this out, that Spurs have had the better year between those two. Exactly. You know what I mean? But they're fighting out, the pair of them are fighting out the FA Cup tomorrow to save their season, which has been degraded when we've won it, by the way. Yeah. You know what I mean? All of a sudden it's a massive game for these two teams. So all I want from Arsenal, Mike, is to be challenging. You know what I mean? It isn't necessarily winning things, but I want, when you go to playing the Champions League, I like to feel that we've got a chance of winning it. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but I've been in the Champions League for the last 10 years thinking, well, we ain't going to win it. And I felt like that in the league, you know what I mean? When it comes to the FA Cup, you feel like you've got a chance of winning it, and we have won it. Fantastic. I do feel we've got a chance of winning the Europa League, and it's lovely feeling that we feel you've got a chance to win it. But last season, going over to Bayern Munich, it was, let's hope we don't get humiliated. When you're coming back, we've got humiliated. You know what I mean? That's what we're having at the moment. So, as I say, I don't think anybody, and no team, Arsenal including that, has the right to win anything. You've got to earn it, and I believe that you've got to try and challenge for it. And that's all I want. I want us to go to games like Manchester City, Manchester United, not hoping that we're going to get get out of there without a good stuffing. I feel like we've got a good chance of winning it. You know what I mean? Going there, putting on a defensive masterclass or a tactical masterclass, and coming away and going, oh, look at that, without fault and out tactic. Mourinho and beaten them at Old Trafford. At the minute, it looks like, well, fingers crossed, we might be able to do it, and I don't want that. I want it to be.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that if we do pull that off, and we then you almost fall into winning the league, or
could happen. Exactly. Yeah,
you fall into winning the league, and if you don't win the league, the reason ends up being because every once in a while you shit the bed that you weren't supposed to shit into, which is the same old thing of losing, and every team has done it other than Manchester City this season. They've lost to West Brom at home Manchester United just lost to West Brom at home last weekend.
Yeah.
Tottenham hasn't had too many shitting the bed opportunities against lower level teams this season. I'm sure they've had a few, but so it's just going to be interesting to me next year. I don't know what the answer is, but if we assume that really the ceiling in the league is second, maybe third in the league next season, that means by definition that we either haven't come up against the big teams as we should, or we've lost games that we shouldn't have lost against lower level teams. Because otherwise, you're going to only drop a handful of points in the season and you're going to end up winning the league. So will that come back on the new manager? Will that come back on the players? And will Emirates explode in riots again if that ends up happening? I just don't know how to judge success.
The thing is, and this is how I see it. Look at, and I will use Tottenham as an example. I don't like using them, but you will. They've got a strategy, and they're doing really, really well. Yeah, but they've got that, which is Harry Kane up front. Then do you imagine if we had all of that? But we've got a Banyang up front, we've got Lacazette up front, we've got Mkhitaryan, we've got Mesut Ozil, we've then got Aaron Ramsey coming through from midfield. We've got a lot of talent. You know what I mean? So just you never know, Mike. You know what I mean? If we beat all the teams that we're expected to beat, and then can go away from home and defend, maybe get some draws. We don't even beat teams at home, Mike, in the Emirates. You know what I mean? Like, Chelsea have come there this season, got a result. Manchester United have beaten us. Liverpool have got a draw. Manchester City have beaten us. The only team that's we've got a result about of the top 4 or top 5 is Tottenham. With one win. We don't win a one from home against none of them. So in the whole of those 5-10 games, Arsenal have won one game, Mike. You know what I mean? If we could get 5 wins out of that, you know what I mean, where would it put us? It would put us right in the mix, and that's what we've got to do. And it's not going to be easy, but that's what we've got to be aiming to do.
Well, it's a hell of a day. It started
a historical day. It's a day that we won't forget for a long, long while, and
it is. And I'm happy as a new podcaster, relatively new, because it was starting to get into the situation where it's like, well, what do we talk about this week that's any different than what we talked about last week?
Do you know, just quickly, just to say, everything now changes. Arsenal Fan TV is going to have to revert. It's going to
be interesting what happens there.
It's going to change because
I've always said, and I'm close to you and to a lot of other people that do that. I've always said that one of the worst things and I could be dead wrong about this, but I said one of the worst things for Arsenal TV that could happen is a change in manager.
Yeah,
that's what so many of the regulars have been clearing.
It's got to revolve now. That's got to, because to be honest, if you go after 2 games and start slagging off Allegri if he's the manager, you're going to make yourself look silly. So that's got to revolve. Everything about Arsenal now is going to revolve. Whether it's really interesting. Arsenal Fan TV is going to do it. Like, we've got a fella over here on TalkSport that consistently slags off Arsenal.
Believe me, we got Adrian Durham over here.
You get Adrian Durham. I don't like mentioning the bloke's name, but he's now got to change because he's lived off of slagging off Arsene Wenger for 5 years.
What's he up to today? Is he crying?
Well, he's probably yeah. Because at the end of the day, his show now is going to have to revolve. Because he can't slag off Arsenal no more. Like, I mean, probably be going to someone else. But if he goes on to somebody else, Mike, and starts slagging off Pochettino or Klopp, it's not going to have the same. He's going to be discredited. So everything in the world of football and Arsenal now is going to revolve, and they're either going to fall off the train here, or they're going to keep going. And it'd be very interesting to see what Arsenal Fan TV is going to do from now on.
Well.
it's going to be very.
I'll be very interested. I think certain people, yourself prime among them, who have really always just kind of spoken your mind, whether it's positive or negative, will be fine and just as intriguing as anyone else. But it's going to be interesting to see how certain people who have staked their entire claim to a movement will survive this. I'm sure they'll be fine. It's just
they're evolved. They're going to have to. They're going to have to sit down and evaluate themselves, just like the club's going to, and that's how it is going to be. It's an exciting time. I think it's exciting. You know,
and as much as I have been positive in my own mind and comfortable in my own skin the last 2 seasons, feeling very strongly that it was time for him to go. You know, I don't think that Andy or I have made a point to be a podcast about Arsene Wenger needing to go.
Nah.
And I'm thankful for that, because that's really not how we felt. It isn't about Arsene first. It's about just anything that we happen to feel on the day of that we podcast, and you know, there's been joy, there's been angst, there's been anger, and there will certainly be more of all of those ahead of us, because I think we're going to experience the highs and lows even more dramatically, instead of just kind of this middle where we're become numb to it. But
from my point of view, listen, whenever I come on your show, and about 3 or 4 times now, it's been a blast. It's been a laugh and all that. Today's one's not, because it's been not so, but it's been serious, because it's been a serious conversation and whatever it is. And that's how you'll evolve. You know what I mean? You can have a serious conversations like we had today, and it's enjoyable, but you can then go to the light-hearted.
Of that. Yeah, I mean, you know,
that's something you can do. But if you was kept banging on about Arsene Wenger, you're going to come up for some trouble. But you're not like that, you know what I mean? And that's the good thing that makes you guys so good.
Still, I appreciate that. Clearly, I was fishing for exactly what you just said.
Exactly.
So it will be interesting. We're looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out. And Lee, are you what's same old AFC up to these days?
We've been so busy. I've had a little bit of a disaster at work over the last week or so. So I've been working late and everything, but that's all sorted now, and hopefully. If everything's so, we're back on Monday for our first show in a couple of weeks. So
you're going to keep pressing on.
Keep pressing on. That's very, very good. Boom, boom. Like that way. So
that's funny to like 2 people, but
now the press is working. Like, you know, I'm back. You know what I mean? But I'm still busy now. I'm still trying to catch up. But we're there.
And you've got your new segment, your YouTube segment that I've been enjoying with
like the judge. So if any of the American guys have not watched it, you know, be appreciating if you did. You know what I mean? It's something that
you like hearing Lee tell you that that's a stupid question.
Stupid question, like, you know. So that evolved from coming on there, didn't it? Really, like, you know, we sort of come about that, and when we was having a meeting about it, I said, you know what, I want to put in this stupid question, and they went to me, what do you mean stupid question? So I said, well, if you know, I want when someone asks a stupid question, I want to dismiss it, bang, like that. Oh, that's a brilliant idea, like, you know what I mean? So we've done it in one of the and people have loved it, you know what I mean? To be honest, and so that's part of, you know. And what was a great thing is that when I've done that the first time, you phoned me up and said, well, you didn't use my question. So I said, no, I
tried to make my question extremely stupid.
Yours on the next one. And when I'd done it, Robbie texted me and said, what a great idea, the stupid question. So that was it, like, you know. So we've taken a bit of claim to fame to that, like, you know. So that's going really well. I'm really pleased with that. The reviews have been really good on it, and I'm you know, overwhelmed by what people have been saying about it. So it's fantastic.
Right, man. As long as you're having fun, as long as you're in, you know, my family is like, why is this news so important today? Why are you like not going to work today? And I'm like, because I'm in this world where this is the biggest thing that's happened in the last 10 years easily. And it's just a big deal. My phone's going crazy. And they're like, yeah, but you work, you're going to a basketball, an NBA playoff game tonight. So why are you focused on this? I'm like, because I have to be. This is the world that I'm in now. It's huge, but you know, I appreciate you taking time out of your Friday.
Loved it.
I know you were super busy tonight, and And I haven't seen you sipping champagne, but
I'm behaving myself. I'll be doing that on Sunday, so I'm saving myself for that, like, you know.
Well, hopefully we'll see each other over in Europe at some point, whether it's in France or in London.
If we get to Leon, are you coming?
I can't say I haven't been looking into it. I pretty much have to decide between the Europa League final and peace and harmony in my family, and it's not an easy decision. It might just be Leon. So
it'll be Leon then.
We'll see, man. It'll be hard to turn down. But anyway, we're gonna end it here.
No worries, Mike.
And thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Let's do one against West Ham. Do them, and that's it. Come on, you Gooners.
Come on, you Gunners.